Welcome to Discover Daily by Perplexity, an AI-generated show on tech, science, and culture. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sienna. Today we're diving deep into a fascinating story about how melting glaciers are literally redrawing the border between Switzerland and Italy. But first, let's take a look at some other big stories making waves across the tech and science world.
LiquidAI, an MIT spin-off, has just unveiled a series of innovative new models that are challenging the traditional large language model architecture. These new liquid foundation models, or LFMs, represent a pretty significant departure from the transformer-based architectures we're used to seeing. The key difference is in how they handle memory usage and process longer data sequences. LFMs maintain a nearly constant memory footprint regardless of input length, which makes them much more efficient for handling things like long documents or even audio and video data.
And apparently, this approach is already yielding some impressive results. There are 3 versions of Liquid's LFMs. In early benchmarks, Liquid says that their smallest model, LFM 1.3b, outperformed Meta's Llama model on several key tests, marking the first time a non-GPT architecture has significantly outperformed transformer models of comparable size. As LiquidAI optimizes these models for various hardware platforms, it will be interesting to see how they evolve and what real-world applications they enable. Keep an eye on this development.
Speaking of developments, Telegram, the popular messaging app, just announced a pretty significant change to its privacy policy. Telegram will now share users' IP addresses and phone numbers with authorities in response to court orders that confirm criminal activity on the platform. This is a big shift from their previous stance, which really emphasized user privacy above all else. The change is largely in response to increasing legal pressure and scrutiny from governments around the world. Telegram's CEO Pavel Durov was arrested in France over allegations that the company wasn't doing enough to crack down on illegal activities happening on the platform. While the company says it's implementing some measures to ensure transparency, like publishing regular reports on data requests, there are definitely some concerns and criticisms around what this policy change will mean for user privacy and trust in the platform.
Now, let's turn our attention to that fascinating story I mentioned at the top of the show, the shifting border between Switzerland and Italy in the Alps. This is a pretty wild example of how climate change is literally reshaping the world around us. As the glaciers in the Alps continue to melt at an accelerated rate, the natural boundaries that have historically defined the border between Switzerland and Italy are shifting. Some sections of the Swiss-Italian frontier were originally delineated by glacier ridgelines or areas of perpetual snow and ice. But with rapid glacial retreat in recent years, those lines are moving, and the two countries have had to come together to officially redefine the border. Switzerland has already ratified the agreement to essentially redraw the map in several key areas near the Matterhorn and other popular ski destinations. Italy is expected to finalize their approval soon as well. And while these might seem like small technical changes, they actually have some pretty significant implications. For one, it's a stark reminder of just how quickly and dramatically our environment is changing due to global warming. There are also practical considerations around things like land and resource management, tourism, and even national security as these borders shift. In some places, melting glaciers are revealing new land or uncovering historical artifacts and even human remains that have been frozen for decades. That raises all sorts of questions about who has jurisdiction and responsibility over those areas. And then there's the economic impact. Many of the towns and businesses in this region rely heavily on ski tourism. As the glaciers recede and the winter season gets shorter, they're having to adapt and find new ways to attract visitors year-round. It's a complex and evolving situation, and the border redraw between Switzerland and Italy is really just one example of how this is playing out. Experts say we can expect to see more of these kinds of changes and negotiations in mountain regions around the world as climate change continues to reshape the landscape. And it's not just mountainous areas. Rising sea levels are also threatening to submerge island nations and coastal regions, which could have huge implications for maritime boundaries and sovereignty. Even the melting Arctic ice is opening up new shipping routes and access to resources, leading to new territorial disputes. It's a reminder that the effects of climate change go beyond just the physical environment. They have real geopolitical, economic, and social consequences that we'll be grappling with for generations. International agreements and cooperation are going to be key in navigating this new reality and finding ways to adapt and build resilience.
Thanks for tuning in to Discover Daily. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode.
And for more on all the stories we covered today, check out the links in our episode description. You can also find us on the Perplexity app, now available on both Android and iOS.
In other Perplexity news, we've launched the Perplexity Encyclopedia, a resource to learn more about other exciting AI tools. Head to perplexity.ai/encyclopedia to check it out.
We'll be back tomorrow with more stories at the intersection of tech, science, and culture. Until then, stay curious.